All right, welcome to the Krueger Show, bright and early on a Saturday. We're off and running, and Al Sacco is in the house. He's one of our favorites. We're going to talk about the Niners and the Cowboys. Both teams are desperate. This one's going to be good. Let's go. And good morning to everybody. It is, 9:06 on the West Coast, 6 minutes afternoon on the East Coast. Welcome to the Krueger Show on a Saturday, brought to you by Pig It Up Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket. Get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. Call my friend Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. And this live stream today is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krug Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. We've won already 4 times this year. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners, and they will match your first deposit up to $200. Thanks to Better for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And everybody who signs up with Better automatically is, we shouldn't say that. We already gave away the jersey. And the jersey that we gave away, the guy who won picked a Malik Mustafa number 6, which I loved. That was very cool. But I was going to remind everybody, check us out. We're at Pig in a Pickle on the 3rd for our meet and greet, November 3rd. So if you're in Marin County, they've got 2 locations. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. We will not be in Emeryville, but we will be in Corte Madera in Marin from noon to 6 during the bye week. Just watching football, drinking beer. I'll be there. Kev will be there. Real casual. Stop by, have some barbecue, kind of an open house type thing. Say hello. We might bring some Krug Show merch that we can distribute to our fans, and we appreciate all of you guys for stopping by. And by the way, it's the same day as Damon's meet and greet, so don't go to Damon's meet and greet and come over to mine. If that sounds petty, well, now you know a little bit more about me. I'm a petty individual. No, but I'm serious. Bail on Damon's and come to my meet and greet November 3rd at Pig in a Pickle. All right. Let's get to it. Al Sacco's in the house on a Saturday. We were just on his show the other day, and he's back with us now, and I'm thrilled to have him. Al, good morning, man. How are you?
Not good. Did you watch the Yankee game last night? I'm not doing well this morning.
That was it was an amazing sports night. The Warriors trounced the Utah Jazz, and then the Dodgers the Yankees go up on the Dodgers in extras, and I'm like, oh, awesome. Let me watch the final 3 outs. They'll get them out. And then if you missed it, Freddie Freeman with the grand slam, Kirk Gibson-like home run. And I did a live stream last night with Ned Coletti and Glenn Kuiper and Dan Cochimilio after the game. We had a phenomenal live stream with thousands of people in the house. But yeah, I mean, I want to see the Yankees win. I'm older than you, I think, and one of the things that made me a baseball fan. It's funny because all these people associate me with football now, but in the chat last night, there were guys like, "Whoa, Krug's kind of a baseball fan." It's like, no, Krug's a definite baseball fan. But it was Reggie Jackson and those 3 swings in the 77 series as 7-year-old Larry Krueger watched on. I was hooked, man. That was amazing theater. Yankees, Dodgers, and it was amazing. I was hooked. I was a baseball fan from that point on.
Yeah, I grew up in upstate New York, so I've been a Yankee fan my whole life, and this is the 9th World Series maybe that I've seen them in, which I know was a tough life to see your team in 9 World Series. But Aaron Boone, to bring in a Nestor Cortez who hasn't pitched since I think it was September 18th, and put him in that spot. To put him in that spot, maybe the worst managerial decision I've ever seen. Definitely in a World Series by the Yankees. Maybe ever. Maybe of all time. I'm still like, I can't believe.
Will they bounce back tonight? Will the Yankees bounce back or make this a long series?
I didn't think the Yankees had any business being in the World Series. I thought they got kind of lucky with their draw with Kansas City and with Cleveland. Dodgers are just a better team. Yankees got 3 guys. Once you get past Judge, Soto, and Stanton, the rest of the team is kind of The bullpen is mediocre. I think the Dodgers are a better team. I don't know. I'd say Dodgers in 6. But if Yankees stole last night, I thought they could have got a lot of momentum going. You got to win that cold start, and they didn't. And here we are. Just a terrible job by Aaron Boone. Terrible.
Well, good luck to your Yankees tonight. I will be watching it. I'm hoping for baseball's sake that this is the World Series that, like my passion for baseball was ignited. I hope there's lots of young people that come to baseball because of this series.
Yeah, it's kind of a dying sport, it feels like sometimes.
It does feel like it. I mean, heck, I'll just say this right now. I could have an amazing baseball live stream with former big leaguers and managers and general managers and killer media people and all kinds of great topics and guests and everything. And it won't get what an average Niners stream will get as far as traction. And maybe that's just my channel because I'm doing a lot of Niners, but I did a lot of Giants last year, and I didn't, it's just baseball is not quite as it's just not as popular as football. Football is
not close. Football's king.
Yeah. Look at the NBA. They own Christmas, and then the NFL said, Christmas. And then
we'll take that too.
That was it. It was like NBA is like, oh, no, I guess we got to go somewhere else. All right, let's talk about this matchup because at first I was thinking, oh, this is a get right spot for the Niners. But the more I look at the matchup and the more I read about the two sides, the more I get nervous. Now, Al, we've been on each other's streams before, but I don't know how much you know my background, but I used to scout in the Canadian League, and before that or after that in the NFL with the Cardinals. One of my jobs in the Canadian League was to I did all the quality control, and I had to put together the report that said, if we're going to lose, how are we going to lose? So we looked at them, we're trying to beat them. We looked at ourselves, we're trying to self-scout. But then late in the week, the defensive coordinator would want me to give him a report of, assume we're going to lose. How are they going to beat us? Mm-hmm. And it was an exercise that he wanted so he could then, kind of sharpen his axe, so to speak, and be better on game day and maybe account for a few things he hadn't. And when I look at this Dallas 49er game, I can definitely see that the Niners on paper should win. Why? Because the Niners run the ball and stop the run for the most part, though they haven't stopped the run as well as I'd like. But, they run the ball and they stop the run, and Dallas doesn't, just in short, right? They don't run the ball, and they don't stop the run, and they don't really have much of a running game. So I really love the Niners. But then when I look at a couple other factors, it makes me nervous. Here are those factors. Dallas is coming off a bye week, right? And they're 3-1 after a bye under Mike McCarthy. That's one. Mm-hmm. They just got annihilated by Detroit 2 weeks ago by 38 points. So they've got this new resolve to turn their season around. Then you've got the fact that the Niners have had the upper hand on Dak Prescott. He's thrown 6 picks against them in these recent games. And the Niners, big part of the Niners' success over Dallas has been turnovers. Niners are 3-0 this year when they win the turnover battle. They're 0-4 this year when they're tied or losing the turnover battle. But then the special teams. The Niners are one of the worst special teams units I've ever seen. They consistently get embarrassed by their counterparts. And now here comes the Cowboys. They're number 1 in the NFL in special teams. So I fear that the Niners are going to get the Cowboys A game. And by the way, the Cowboys have 7 more days of rest. So they're the Cowboys in the middle of the year, as the Niners are limping towards their bye week. The Cowboys are fresh, bouncing off their bye week, recommitting to one another after getting their doors blown off by Detroit at home. They're better on the road than they are at home. They've got a killer special teams. They've got a good record off the bye under McCarthy, and they're desperate. So anybody who thinks that you're going to roll out tomorrow night to Levi's and you're going to see the Niners just roll, and it's just going to be some like, oh yeah, the Niners Cowboys, think again. This game is going to be tough. Dallas could easily win this game tomorrow night.
Now, Dallas at home this year, they're 0-3 and they've given up 119 points. Right. On the road, they're 3-0 and they've given up 49 points. Now, granted, those three teams were the Browns, the Steelers, and the Giants, not offensive juggernauts by any stretch of the imagination. But you mentioned the run game. The only way that I can really justify Dallas winning this game, to me, the rest stuff is huge. Absolutely. They're coming off the bye. They're kind of due. And like you said, they're going to get the Niners A game. But you look at the matchup, the run game. Dallas has run for 80 yards or more just twice this season. That's total 80 yards or more in a game, twice. They're averaging 3.5 yards per carry. And you mentioned Dak. The last three games against the Niners, two of them are in the playoffs. 14 for 24 for a $153, 1 TD and 3 picks. 23 of 37 for 206 and a TD and 2 picks. 23 of 43 for 254, a TD and a pick. So 3 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions. Dak tends to play smaller in these big games. He's a very good regular season quarterback. He puts up numbers, but in these big games, we've seen it over and over again. Dallas is desperate.
He has struggled too, by the way. Dak has struggled as an underdog, 17-19 against the spread in his career, 2-9 against the spread as an underdog in his last 11. So he's struggled since 2020. He's 4-11 since 2020 as an underdog. The only quarterbacks worse are Bryce Young, Minshew, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. But one thing that you do want to point out is Dak in his career off extended rest. He's got 24 games like that. He's 18-6 against the spread.
Really?
In those games.
That.
Yeah.
And with Dallas too. So if you look at the last 3 times, you think, well, the Niners own Dallas, and the Niners kicked, they beat the hell out of Dallas last year. It was a complete blowout. But those 2 playoff games, just Purdy was phenomenal. It just wasn't close. But those 2 playoff games were ugly games, grinded out kind of games that they played. So it tends to, I know Dallas is beat up, but I don't think we can go in and expect another blowout from the Niners, knowing that most of the past history were kind of ugly, muck it up sort of who's going to make the first mistake type games. We'll see if it comes out that way again, but both teams are desperate. They're both desperate. The Niners cannot go 3-5. The Cowboys got to right the ship. I mean, if the Niners go 3-5, my God, going into the second half of the season, are they going to win 9 games? Because I have 3 losses that I think they're definitely going to get in the second half with this iteration of the team. So They have to win. They have to win this week. It's just a huge game for both teams. I can't wait to see what Niners team shows up and how or if they answer the bell.
Well, I mean, it's the whole season on the line. National TV, entire season on the line. And there's always surprises. Micah Parsons will not play.
Which is huge.
There will not be a Micah Parsons surprise, so that's good. Yeah, absolutely huge. There'll be no Deron Bland either. Bland remains out. So the Niners are going to benefit from those 2, second and third level defenders not being there. But from what I'm hearing, and I'm not sure if you're hearing anything about this, we didn't mention this the other day, but I just heard this yesterday, that this could be the debut of Dalvin Cook, that he has been on their practice squad, and they've got the worst rush offense in the game. They average, as you said, 77 yards a game. They haven't had a 100-yard rusher in a franchise record 20 games. Now here comes Dalvin Cook, and he had 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons for the Vikings from 2019 through 2022. What do you think, Al? Is Dalvin Cook scarier than Rico Dowdle or Zeke Elliott? Because those are the other options.
I mean, Dalvin Cook hasn't been Dalvin Cook in almost 2 years now. So that doesn't really scare me. He hasn't played in forever. If he does play, I don't see him coming in and, where they're going to give him 15, 20 carries. They'll mix him in because it's been a while. He doesn't scare me. Their running game is kind of a joke. And that's the thing with Dallas. They can't run the ball and they can't stop the run. They give up 143 rushing yards per game. That's 6th worst in the NFL. And they've given up 10 rushing TDs this year, which is the second most. So they're not a good team to stop the run and they can't run the ball. That bodes well for the 49ers. So I'm not afraid of that. Can they explode in the passing game? Yeah, I mean, the secondary is the Niners' strength, I feel like. But CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb. He's a terrific player. They can really move the ball. Jake Ferguson, I like him a lot at tight end. And then they have these other guys, Turpin and Tolbert. They're not household names, but they're guys who can catch the ball. So if Dak can get hot, who knows? But you brought up that special teams disparity too. It just seems like every game something happens with the 49ers and special teams. Games where they're up by 2 or 3 scores and a big, you get the return against Seattle and the team gets back in the game. So it's those kind of things that worry me about the 49ers. The special teams gaffes, the turnovers, the way they've let some of these teams back into games. Even if they get a 2-score lead, you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop and something fluky to happen or a long return to happen or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden 21-7 turns into 21-17. And you're like, oh shit, this is a game now. Those are the things that the Niners have to stop doing, in order to put these teams away and get back on the right track, I feel like.
Teams are playing man-to-man a lot more against the Niners because Brock Purdy is struggling against man-to-man. Mm-hmm. He's completing 73% against zone, but 41% against man. The Niners are seeing man coverage at the 4th highest rate in the league now, 49.6, and Purdy's got a 48.2 QBR against it, which is 23rd in the NFL. And as I said, his QBR rises to 76.8 at second best in the NFL against zone. So expect a lot more man coverage, which also means that you may want to take that prop on Purdy's rushing because, if you play tons of man against him, odds are one or two times he's going to bail out of the pocket and run for a first down. And I think most of those over-unders are right around 10 yards. So I would take the Purdy rushing over. But what do you think? I mean, if it's as simple as, well, play man and don't play zone against Brock, what's the Niners counter? Or do they have to counter with faster or different personnel?
Well, I'd like to see the Niners just get back to their roots a little bit in terms of committing to running the football and using play action. And another thing I feel like we don't see, I don't love Deebo Samuel running the ball. I feel like the league's kind of caught up to it. He's not breaking those big runs anymore, but I do still love Deebo on those screens. Get the ball in his hands, be the Niners that you're used to being. Stop with this drop back passing game. Run the football, use play action, and I think that'll cure a lot of their ills. Now, there has been an issue with separation with the receivers, and you mentioned the man coverage. If you can't separate, there you go. Yeah. But maybe Kyle can dial some things up and get some people open in space. But you mentioned it on the show the other day with us, is Ayuk was kind of their deep threat, right? He was the guy that they went downfield at. So now you don't have him there. And even if the numbers weren't there for him, they still had to account for Ayuk, and teams were accounting for him. He didn't put up the production, but teams were accounting for him being there. Now you don't have to do that. So we've already seen a lot of guys in the box against the 49ers. It could get to be even more of that if they have receivers who can't separate. Jennings isn't a separator, but he's somebody who gets a lot of big catches for them, contested catches. He's not going to be there. So who's going to make plays in the receiving game? They need George Kittle and Deebo Samuel to step up huge and Kyle to scheme things up. It's a little scary now looking at that receiver room without Ayuk and saying, oh, okay, there's a week that they can shut them down now. Like, there's teams that can really take a lot away in the passing game from the 49ers. And that's a little bit scary as they move forward, because these other teams that have started 3-4, 4-4, the iteration of the 49ers that have started slow, they had a lot of, they had all the dogs in the race. You know what I mean? They're all whatever. They've had all their main guys throughout the season to be able to rebound. Now you don't have that. You don't have Ayuk on offense. You're not going to have Hargrave. Greenlaw, whenever he comes back, they're going to have to ease him in. Hufanga's probably out for the season, or we'll see if he comes back with a cast or whatever he's going to try to do. But they don't have these guys. So the notion that they can turn it around, I don't know. I just feel like it's a different season this year.
No, I agree with you. Diana Rossini from The Athletic has a couple notes on the trade deadline. The trade deadline is November the 5th. Mm-hmm. She's saying, hearing that the Patriots would move off of Kendrick Bourne or Davin Godchaux or Godshow, the defensive tackle, she says DeForest Buckner and DJ Jones were discussed internally by the 49ers, but Diana Rossini says she doesn't get the sense those teams would want to trade those players away, meaning Denver or Indy. Mooney Ward was named as a name that may draw trade interest from other teams. So I think this is kind of an interesting one to me. Just that the 49ers, what are the Niners going to do at the trade deadline if they win this game tomorrow, if they lose this game tomorrow? I can't see them selling off pieces, but you never know because their cap situation is pretty dire. And they may look at their team and just say, hey, you know what? We're 3-5. We've got $55 million under the cap, but it's earmarked for a Purdy extension. Let's we know we're gonna have to kiss off Mooney Ward and 5 or 6 other guys. So why don't we, if we've got somebody that's willing to give us a 4th round pick for Mooney Ward, let's take the 4th round pick and get down the road. I don't know if I love it because they're very much alive in the division race, and once you pop into the playoffs, anything could happen. But how do you think Lynch is going to play his cards, win or lose tomorrow?
Could you imagine if you're Judd York and you just had to shell out? We know they didn't want to do it. You just had to shell out millions for Christian McCaffrey, who hasn't stepped on the field yet this season. You just had to shell out millions for Trent Williams, who wasn't happy with his contract, even though he had years remaining on it. I know they weren't guaranteed, but you just had to pay your wide receiver, who's you're probably not going to see again until mid next season, money that you didn't want to pay him. And now you're going to sell off at around Halloween. Could you imagine if you're Jed York? I mean, listen, I'm not saying Kyle and John are going anywhere, but if that happens, they need to come in Jed York's office and answer some questions, right? Are you just the owner and going to brush that off if you're giving up on the season around Halloween with all the money that you've spent? The window is closing for these guys. It's just reality. I hate to say it. I'm a 49ers fan, but it feels like their chance was last season, the Super Bowl. The football god said, we gave you the opportunity. We gave you the coin flip in overtime, and you took the freaking ball. You didn't go for it on 4th down. And it feels like the football gods are saying now, you know what? It's over, guys. We're shutting the window. We gave you your opportunity. So that's a tough sell. To answer your question, even at 3-5, I feel like they have to stay in it. You can't trade Mooney Ward. You can't trade Deebo Samuel. You can't trade these guys. You got to give them, especially with you said how playoff tested they are. If they even get in at 9-8, you never know what's going to happen. You can't sell it off. Like, you've invested so much in this core and in this team. You got to try to play it out. 3-5, it's rough. And I think you have losses to the Packers, the Bills, and Detroit in there. So 3-5, 5 losses can turn into 8. And then you have to win those other games. And if you look at the NFC West right now, Larry, we were talking the other night, like, this is a garbage division. All of a sudden the Rams are 3-4. The Rams looked really good the other night, beating a good Vikings team. If they stay healthy,
they're not going to sell. They're not going to sell Cooper. They're not going to sell any of their players.
If you looked at their schedule, it's not hard. Like, there is an easy path for the Rams to get to 9-8. And then that Niners game is going to be huge again if they're close. It's a big game with the Seahawks for them this weekend. The Rams can easily get to 9 wins. The Seahawks can get to 9 wins. Hell, Arizona might be able to get to 9 wins right now. So the Niners are going to be in a dogfight. But no, I do not think they should sell. I mean, I'm not saying trade a 1st round pick for a receiver or anything like that, but they should not sell, and they should try to add, even if it's a rotational defensive lineman, just to get some more depth in there. Even if it's a vet receiver, just to help out a little bit, to take some of the pressure off Pearsall and Cowing and guys like that, they should do it, mid-round picks, that sort of thing. But no, I don't think they should sell regardless of what happens this weekend.
Yeah, I don't want to see them sell, but I would like to see them buy. And to me, you can't buy everything that you need, right? Because you need another offensive lineman or two, and you need a fast receiver, and you maybe could use another running back, and you need a linebacker, and you could use a defensive end, and you probably could use a safety that could cover, and you can always use another corner. And, you could go and, there's just a lot of moves you could make. To me, I think you got to look at what move can you make that could have an positive impact on the rest of the team. I think if you could add one receiver, who could run a little bit, that would help. And I think one more pass rusher to give you a deeper arsenal of edge rushers, because Drake Jackson and Robert Beal, Drake's out for the year. Beal's not giving you a whole lot. So you're leaning so heavily on Bosa and Floyd. And Sam O has been a nice little addition. But if you could get, Azeez Ojulari and Darius Slayton from the New York Giants, something like that, some team that could give you a couple pieces, Christian Kirk and Darnell Savage or something like that, or Christian Kirk and Trayvon Walker from Jacksonville. I mean, it seems like Jacksonville has a lot of pieces that the Niners could really use. I mean, they have several pieces that the Niners could use. I don't know if Trent Baalke would want to help the Niners. The Niners do also have their full contingent of picks plus an extra third rounder. So maybe that's what they'll try to, heck, the Chiefs got D-Hop for a fifth. If the Niners are willing to move their third, they might be able to get a more significant player than we think. Usually the picks are pretty valuable this time of year if you're willing to move them. And then I'll say this. I know the Niners need their high picks to try to replenish their talent, but they're also inside their Super Bowl window. And if the right collection or the right kind of deal was out there, I would move a day 1 or day 2 pick if the right kind of deal was out there where I was solving a lot of my problems and it was the right kinds of players. Yeah, I think it would have to be younger players. It would have to be like Garrett Wilson, or as I said, I mentioned Trayvon Walker. It had to be somebody that would be young that is going to be that you think is going to be a key figure on your team going forward. You're not trading a number 1 pick for a rental or some older player. But they need some help. I think they got to make a move because right now you're leaning on young receivers. You're thin at defensive end. You're leaning on young secondary, very young secondary, very young linebackers. They really miss Greenlaw. I think if you said to me, what was their big mistake if they made one? They allowed an all-pro player to be out for the year in Greenlaw without replacing him with anybody of any substance. Yeah, so the drop-off at linebacker has been monumental.
Huge. And look what it did in the Super Bowl when he went out. It changed the entire game.
Yeah.
And a big thing with the Niners, we look at the 49ers and we say they're very talented. They are. Lynch and Shanahan have done a great job, obviously, putting a roster together. But what I feel like we're seeing right now is, I don't want to call it all the Trey Lance trade, but because there were other picks that they've made, but we're seeing they haven't been able to replenish their stars and kind of set themselves up for a second window. And if you look at the drafts that they had from 2017 to 2020, they got blue chippers every which way. And I don't mean dudes who start. I mean blue chip Hall of Fame players: George Kittle, Fred Warner, Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, Dre Greenlaw, Brandon Ayuk. The list goes on, right? Of these guys they were able to bring in who are Hall of Fame-ish or all-pro-ish type players. Who's been that since 2021? I don't mean like Lenore is a terrific player. He's a starting corner.
They've brought in Purdy, but other than Purdy, they've swung and missed.
Who, especially you're built on the defensive line. They have built this team around the defensive line since they came in. Even the pick didn't work, but they said we're building around the defensive line. We're taking Solomon Thomas, and they did that early on. They made it a priority. Who have they brought in on the defensive line that's a long-term fix or long-term help in the last 4 years?
It really hasn't happened. Yeah.
They try with Kinlaw. He doesn't work. We got to go out and sign Hargrave. They try with Drake Jackson. That doesn't work. Well, we got to go trade for Chase Young. Well, we got to sign Leonard Floyd as a 2-year Band-Aid now. We got to trade for Malik Collins because we never replaced Eric Armstead coming, as he was getting older. They haven't done that. So you could say like, oh, well, they have a starter here or a starter there. That's great. But where are the blue chip guys? They haven't done it. And now you're starting to see these guys are getting older. There's holes in the teams. And when you look to next year, we talked, okay, we're going to move on from Mooney Ward. Oh, okay. I mean, you have Renardo Green, but Mooney Ward's a huge hole. You're going to move on from Hufanga. You hope Mustafa can replace that. You don't have anybody to replace Greenlaw if you move on from him. The offensive line has 3 replacement level players on it. McCaffrey getting older. We love Christian McCaffrey, but he's pushing 30. And you said something on our show the other day that scared the hell out of me. And I guess I didn't really think about it until you said it. What happens at wide receiver next season? And I know we're jumping the gun because we're still talking about this season, but as we look at a trade, if you bring in a wide receiver, you need someone to help next year, because next year you don't have Brandon Ayuk probably until halfway through the season. What's Deebo Samuel's future? Now all of a sudden the Niners, where you're like, look at all these weapons. What's the plan for the next window? What's the plan to keep this going? If Purdy is not a franchise level carry the team type guy, and I think you should pay him, and I think he's very good. He's not Josh Allen. Right? He's not going to win you games just from him being on the field type thing. You can win with him for sure. He's a high level, I think, NFL quarterback, but elite Lamar, Josh Allen. No, there's only a few of those guys. Patrick Mahomes, obviously. So the Niners have a lot of problems, and whatever they do with the trade deadline, I do think they should think long-term with it too. Yeah, this guy helps us this year, but where can he fill in coming up in the years ahead? Because all you have in a lot of spots right now are Band-Aids, especially on the defensive line other than Bosa.
Makes you wonder too. They always, they always set themselves up to have leverage because they always dig in so deep, and it's like we're going to have a battle royale with our stars, and then they do, and then they hold out, and but they oftentimes it seems like want to get leverage. Will they acquire another quarterback to give themselves leverage against their own quarterback? And I bring that up because Zach Wilson is one of the names out there that's being rumored to be dealt. And I've long felt that the Niners liked Wilson. I know that Wilson likes the Niners. He's had some disaster moments in the NFL, but he's also had some glimpses of talent. With the Niners at the trade deadline, trade some day 3 pick for Zach Wilson to give themselves more coverage against paying Brock Purdy more than they want to pay him.
I hope.
It would be a hardball move, man.
I'm not going too crazy off Purdy's last game. I know a lot of people are. He's a young quarterback, right? Young quarterbacks are going to have games like that. He had a couple last year like that, where against the Browns, where he didn't play well, against the Ravens, and he was terrific for most of the rest of the season. I think he's going to be terrific for most of the rest of this season as well. Just had a bad day. He didn't play well last week. It's good. CJ Stroud had 10 completions last week, right, for 79 yards. These guys have bad weeks. Do they need to get a better backup than Brandon Allen? Yeah, because injuries happen and that sort of thing. But my God, Larry, if we're playing the game next offseason or whatever, where here's what we want to pay you, Brock. I know you're asking for this, but here's what we think you're worth. You cannot play that game with your quarterback. I don't think any of these guys are worth $60 million unless you're a Mahomes or an Allen or a Lamar type thing. But that's the going rate. So if you have to pay him comparable to Tua and Lawrence and these other guys who just got Jordan Love, who just got these contracts, then that's what they have to do. But when you do that, when you pay a quarterback like that, you have to draft well, and you have to have good short-term kind of signings. I hope Yadam was that type of signing, right, where we can get this guy for a year to plug in. Hasn't really worked out, but I think they should pay Purdy, assuming he goes back to being Purdy, which I think he will. And then you just have to draft well and put the pieces around him. You can't have these 5 guys making 20 plus million a year if you got to pay a quarterback. So it'll be a little bit of adjustment. I can see Wilson coming in as a backup in a reclamation project like they did with Darnold. If an injury happens, maybe they sign him to maybe more than a 1-year deal to work with him or whatever. But if you're bringing in Zach Wilson because you don't have faith in Purdy, oh my God, that really scares the hell out of me.
Oh, it does. The whole thing is scary, but at the same time, it's like, well, wait a second. Even right now, it's like, I kind of wonder, there was an article out, there was that Mike Sando had, where there was one anonymous scout who was suggesting that they should trade Purdy and, try to find a younger quarterback, a cheaper quarterback going forward. I just don't think you can go that route. I realized that they had Sam Darnold, and I guess you could sit there and say, well, if they had kept Sam Darnold and traded Brock Purdy, they could have gotten a lot for Brock Purdy and kept Sam Darnold. And look at what Sam Darnold's doing in Minnesota. You could play this game all day. Look at Baker's reclamation in Tampa. Do you want to try to? I don't know what the best plan is. Do you look in the draft for a backup quarterback? Do you look for a veteran? But the Niners have given themselves leverage in the past in these negotiations. They always seem like they play for keeps. I just saw Parag Marathe yesterday getting into his car in the parking lot, and I thought to myself, are they going to get Purdy signed on time? And is this going to be some battle royale? It sounds like Jed's willing to cut the check, but it also sounds like they're still kind of wanting to kind of see what Brock is. Like they themselves don't necessarily believe that Brock is the Brock that that we saw going into that Ravens game. What do you make of the fact that since the Ravens game he has not been as good? Those numbers were thrown out by Nick Wright last week. That pre-Ravens he was 18-3, and his numbers were incredible. Since that Raven game, he's 6-6.
Well, I saw another stat with his touchdowns and interceptions where since the Ravens game, maybe it was 14 TDs and 12 interceptions. But if you take out last week against the Chiefs in the Ravens game, it's 14 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So he's played really well, statistically anyway, in 10 of those 10 of those 12 games or 14 games, whatever it is. So again, it's a young quarterback who had a couple bad weeks, and now things are kind of skewed. The record, I don't put that all on him by any stretch of the imagination. There's a lot of issues here with the 49ers. And I thought early in the season, I thought Purdy was maybe their best player, or certainly one of them. I thought he played really well, other than this past week against the Chiefs. He had a few moments here and there, but I was happy with Brock. I think he was the number one rated QB on PFF through the first 6 weeks of the season. So he was playing well. Things ebb and flow in the NFL. You have to look at, they lose to the Ravens. They're 3-4 right now. What have the losses looked like this year? 2 of them, they just lost the games. Minnesota beat them and Kansas City beat the doors off them. But those other 2 games against division opponents, I thought were kind of fluky. And I don't think they were Brock's fault by any stretch of the imagination. But the thing with the Niners is they're going into their next window, and guys like Pearsall and Cowing and Green and the people they brought in, Pooney, are going to help them build for their next window. So they need to see who are our big guys that we can count on. And I think the offense was going to be built around, well, obviously when you're paying them this kind of money, Ayuk and Purdy. And now there's question marks of, well, okay, if Brock's not playing to the level we thought he was, we'll see what happens for the rest of the season. And Ayuk's not going to be there. Who are we building around on offense? Is it more Band-Aids for a little while? So that's the scary part with this Ayuk injury. But I still have a lot of faith in Brock. I really do. If he has a few stinkers over the next few weeks, then you have to really start to get worried. But I see him bouncing back. I do. This all ebbs and flows. It's all part of being a young quarterback to me. People forget he's 24. He's only in his second full season. He's only a couple months older than Jaden Daniels, or maybe a year older than Jaden Daniels, and a couple months older than Bo Nix. So he's a young quarterback. He's the same age as rookies. So it's going to take some time for him to get over that learning curve and the road bumps and everything else.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge believer in Brock. I really do see a special quarterback who's got special escapability and a guy that they can definitely win a championship with, in my opinion, if they have a good enough core around him. But dating back to last Christmas, he is 1-6 against the spread against teams above 500. Who are above 500 at that point straight up on the season. So his lone cover coming against the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football earlier this year. So he has struggled. One guy that I think is maybe underrated, and I know some people have called this guy overrated, but I think this guy's really underrated, is Deebo Samuel. Since the start of last year, the Niners have played 4 games without him, and they have lost all 4. And they have scored exactly 17 points in 2 games last season, 24 points in week 3 against the Rams, just 18 against the Chiefs. Overall, the Niners have played 19 games without Deebo in his career, and they're 8-11 in those 19 games. I mean, we're talking about one of the deeper rosters in football. We're talking about one of the better teams in the entire league, and yet without one wide receiver, they're 3 games under 500, and they haven't won in their last four tries without him. How vital is Deebo in your mind to what they do?
Yeah, it's interesting because people want to say, oh, well, Deebo is not going to be there next year. Well, we're going to move on from Deebo. And I just keep thinking to myself, why are you wishing for that?
Why
he's not a traditional.
Like it's exciting.
Right. It's not good. And you've even seen the games where Deebo goes out early or he gets hurt early, like against the Chiefs. They didn't expect him to be out. It was against Cleveland when he gets hurt early in the game last year. They can't function all of a sudden. If Kyle's got him in the game plan, and I know it's tough to adjust your game plan last second, but people get hurt. It's football. They can't function. Like the offense literally can't function when he's not there. And they had planned for him to be there. Yeah, he's a guy who just does so much. I brought up the screens. How many times have we seen him 3rd and long and he takes a screen for a first down? What he can do in the open field. And because he's such a Swiss Army knife, I can't talk. Defenses have to account for him, right? They have to account for where he is. Is he in the backfield? Even if those runs don't work, you still have to account for it. So without him there, it makes a huge difference. Yeah. And he's I don't want them to move on from Debo at all next year. I'd rather see them restructure the contract, maybe add a few dummy years on it, whatever you have to do, but keep him in the fold. I know he's getting older. I know he gets hurt. Maybe he's not worth 20, 25 million a year, but maybe you can restructure to get that number down and keep him around. Because Debo's a big time player, man. And until he can't do it anymore, I want to see him in red and gold. He's just too valuable, and he does too much for the team, and he poses too much of a problem for opposing defenses just to say, well, we're just going to move on from him.
Hey, Al, great stuff, man. I've got to jump because I'm jumping on the radio in a couple minutes to do an hour on KMBR. But tell people where they can find you. Good luck to your Yankees, by the way, tonight. Al's a great follow on X at Al Sacco 49. But tell people, about your show, and obviously probably most of them have already caught it before. But tell us about where they can find it and how often you guys go live.
Yeah, we're twice a week. We're part of the Odyssey Network, 49ers Web Zone, No Huddle podcast. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. We got a lot of great guests. We just had Lenore on a few weeks ago. We're always having big guests on. Larry Krueger was on this past week with us. And check us out on YouTube. You guys are all on YouTube right now. Go to 49erswebzone.com and please subscribe to our YouTube station as well, where you can catch us live or just watch us after.
Al, you're awesome, man. We love rapping with you. We'll do it again soon. And best of luck. Thanks for having me on. Anytime you need me, just shout. And we'd love to have you on KMBR here in the next few weeks and chop it up with you. And but we wish you nothing but success. Thanks again.
Appreciate it, Larry. Thank you so much.
Al Sacco. Good stuff. Good stuff with Al. And he's one of my favorites, and they do a fantastic job. They really do. I'm going to hit a couple of the supers before we get out of here, and we got some people asking questions, so I'll answer a couple of them. Macintosh Fam says, Gary and Larry with the baseball history and wisdom. Oh, wow. That's a shout from the past there. Thank you, Mac. Boxing fan ×4. We should only be looking to trade for a linebacker, defensive end, or running back if CMC isn't himself, and if Mason gets hurt. Garendo is too green. Yeah, Garendo is very green. There's no question. They do have Keyshawn Vaughn. He was on the practice field yesterday. They could get him elevated from the practice squad. He does have starting NFL experience. So I'd love to see him. I saw him yesterday running around pretty seriously. Like he looked like he was getting ready to play on Sunday. So today, at some point, the Niners will make a designation. They'll call a couple guys off the practice squad, and maybe Keyshawn Vaughn will be one of them. And if he is, look for him. He's a solid NFL running back for sure, and a guy that I think might be a better option than some of their other options. So that he's the one guy that actually has experience. He has a lot of it. Okay. A couple of you earlier were asking, what's happened to the coach? Where's the coach? Where's the coach? Coach and I streamed for over a year, and he's doing another stream, I think, starting today, where he's breaking down film and Coach's Huddle, which I think is maybe coming up here at 11, I think. I'm not really sure. But it's on his channel, and he's just trying to grow his channel. And, I love Coach, and I hope Coach loves me. And, we have never had a harsh word. So it just, when you start streaming with somebody, we just kind of mutually decided, we'll call it quits. But I mean, it was more his decision than mine, because I was totally fine continuing on. I think some of the chat may have bothered Coach. Some of the people that, were not throwing bouquets his way. I don't know. It's all speculation. He never said that. But I enjoyed streaming with the coach. I love the coach. I'm a big fan of his. I told him that. I told him that we could change it up. We could do whatever he wants. But he just wanted to start his own show on his channel, and he's trying to build up his channel on his side, and that's obviously totally fine. So, but yeah, and it wasn't, I went through all the chats. There was nothing that in any way was out of bounds or anything. There was nothing that I would be like, oh my God, let's get rid of that comment from that person. It wasn't, people were like, oh, there was bad stuff in the chat. No, he just was sensitive to it, I think. And, this is the Krug show. So, there's going to be more people in that chat who are, pro Krug. And if we get into an argument, maybe people would, shout at him. I don't know what the deal was, but you know what? I love the coach. And I support his decision. And if someday he wants to come back and stream some more, awesome. Would love to have him back. And I wish him nothing but success. I love him. My son loves him. We're big fans of what he does. And I told him when I discovered him, do streaming with Grant, that I thought, man, this guy has got star potential. He's really, really strong, really, really solid across the board, very passionate. And I've enjoyed streaming with him immensely in this Saturday time slot. I know a lot of you guys did as well. As one of our more popular streams of the week. But you know what? Life moves on. We move on. I move on. Coach moves on. Everybody's happy about it. And I wish him well. And if at any point he wants to come back and stream, he's got the open invite to do that. And I'm sure at some point we will stream again. So anyway, a lot of you guys are asking that question. I do feel that you deserve an answer. And we got this one from Bazzy Mion. Said, Larry and Coach were always great together, but can't stand those other guys. Okay, well, everybody's got an opinion. I enjoyed Coach immensely, and, I wish him well. That's going to do it for us. I would love it if all you guys jumped over with me right now to KMBR 680 on the AM dial, 104.5 on the FM dial. I'm going to do an hour on the Niners right now. We got a guest coming up at 10:15 from the Cowboys to preview them. So we'll continue our conversation on the radio. Join me coming up right now, and we're going to be doing that top of the hour. So appreciate all of you guys for stopping by. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Hopefully the Niners get it done. I'll be on the KMBR pregame show tomorrow at 3 with Adam Copeland, John Lund, and Dennis Brown. I'll be on the postgame show after the game, and then tomorrow night after the game, we will do a live stream postgame with Kev and Frank Red and Danny and Rye and all that. So looking forward to a big Sunday. Have a great rest of your Saturday. I'll be watching some college football, maybe barbecuing on the patio. Have a great rest of your day. But join me right now on KMBR for one more hour of Niner talk on the Sports Leader. But thanks for supporting the Krug Show. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Better. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you won't